2018's Halloween. This was, in my opinion, the first successful reboot of a slasher franchise. They failed with Jason, and Freddy didn't really work. But with Michael, they got so much right. They keep what worked in the original, while also updating it where it needs to be, without ruining it with what plagues a lot of modern horror films these days. An over-reliance on jump scares and excessive gore or torture. Mind you, there is gore in this film, but it's not overdone or too elaborate. It's not perfect, though. It has a few flaws, but the rest is good enough for me to overlook it. You may not feel the same way, and I can understand why. Now, this film is considered a true sequel to the first Halloween back in 1978. Every film that came after it has been wiped from the board. Instead of all those other killing sprees, Michael has been locked up since the end of the original Halloween. I didn't know this going in, so I was confused at first, but the film states what has changed well enough early on that I was able to get the gist. This brings me to my first gripe, and it's the title. There are now 3 Halloween films that are just called Halloween. There's the 78 film, there's this film, and there's the Rob Zombie remake. Why they didn't think it necessary to add something to this title to tell it apart from the others is beyond me. Because now if I want to talk about the Halloween film, I gotta either include the year or Rob Zombie's name so people know which one I'm talking about. The cast here was overall superb. Jamie Lee Curtis is back as Laurie, but this isn't the same Laurie we've known from the previous films. She's had a different life. She has basically become Sarah Connor from Terminator 2 since what happened in the first Halloween film. I'm not joking. I could not stop making parallels between them the entire time I was watching the film. She has molded herself into a badass in anticipation for the day Michael returns. And she tried to raise her daughter to be ready as well before she got taken away by Child Protective Services as a kid. The daughter's now grown up, and she hates her mother for what she went through as a kid, thinking she traumatized her with all the conditioning and the paranoia. Kind of like how John Connor was in the early part of T2. There's another similarity. I won't spoil it, but I hated the daughter at first, but by the end I loved her arc the most. There is also a granddaughter in this film who just happens to be a teenager when all this is happening, and we know what that means. We gotta have some teen drama, and that is another gripe I have. Just because it's a slasher flick does not mean we need teen angst. You got the D-bag boyfriend, you got the stoner guy and his girlfriend looking to lose their virginities together, and then you got the creepy guy friend that's looking to hook up with her the whole time. But my favorite kill involves the creepy guy. But the setup for him goes on way too long. There is this Halloween dance going on where some drama happens between the granddaughter and her boyfriend. Guess what it is? And it cuts to her walking home with the creepy guy. That gets my favorite kill. The whole point of the dance is to explain why she doesn't have her phone with her when the shit hits the fan. A simple, "oh no, my battery died," would have sufficed. Then you could cut the whole dance out and nothing would change. No one in the audience will care enough about what happened at the dance. There is another bit involving her friend that's babysitting and a little back and forth on the phone that maybe goes on a bit too long, but it got a few laughs out of me so I could take it or leave it. There is one scene, though, involving 2 cops in a car talking about their lunches, of all things, that is pointless and caused my eyes to glaze over for a second, that I would cut from every copy of this film and burn so no one else has to sit through it. Now comes the big one. Michael. This is the best I've ever seen him. His costume, in particular, his mask, is just on point. Everything about him is on point. The very first kill you see him personally commit, shows you that no one is off limits. And it had me seriously dreading what he might do later with another person that he comes across. Now, there are some things from the other Halloween films that they brought over into this one, and you can either say they're paying homage to them or just ripping them off, depending on your preference. But one thing I'm glad they kept, and you may not want to hear this, comes from the Rob Zombie remake. There are moments where Michael is hiding in plain sight during a scene, moving across the background, and in some instances doing a lot more than that. It is masterfully done, so keep your eyes open. even if it looks like nothing is really happening. Overall, I'd give this film an 8 out of 10. If you're looking for a good slasher film to watch in theaters this Halloween, I highly recommend you give it a try. That's all. Thanks for listening.